We just don't want our money going to foreign countries.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
On drag events.
And by the way, that's another thing that proves my point. Republicans and Democrats always do whatever AIPAC tells them. So that is a foreign government.
That's a whole different argument.
It seems like you're downplaying very relevant and very important differences that exist between the parties.
Did you ever consider that they don't mean it? The reason that Joe Biden never tried to raise corporate taxes is because he doesn't want corporate taxes to go up. It was all a trick. It was all a game played on all of us.
No, I don't buy it.
No, I know. There was nothing they could do. That's why they didn't even bother trying.
Well, as you saw there, Cenk went on Jubilee's Surrounded, and it was unlike any other episode that they've done so far, mainly because instead of debating on behalf of the left or the right side of the political aisle, Cenk went up against the establishment in favor of populism.
Yep, it was 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans that I was up against. And I wanted to prove a point, which is that the parties are not on your side. The politicians are the worst people in America. They're not the best people. Mainstream media has been lying to you your whole life. It's a good cop, bad cop shell game. And so that's the conversation that we had. And I don't envy the people who had to debate me on this, not because they're debating me, but because my points here are kind of inarguable. So they wound up having to defend Joe Manchin and Ted Cruz. And it's embarrassing.
Yeah, and what I thought was really fascinating was that I could not really tell, unless the people you were debating with used some sort of political label, whether they were on the right or left side of the establishment.
Sometimes you really couldn't tell.
No, you couldn't tell. You couldn't, and I thought that was telling. Anyway, with that in mind, let's start off with one participant who seems to hate spending American taxpayer dollars on foreign countries, although he does make one exception.
But the overwhelming majority always goes to rich. For example, in this bill, they're cutting Medicaid and SNAP by 1.1 trillion. Do you know how much is going to people making above $500,000 a year in tax cuts? 1.1 trillion, okay? So they're literally taking from the poorest people and giving it to the richest people.
Which is what the liberals have been doing forever. So what's the difference?
How are they doing? So no, brother, what I'm saying is you're actually proving my point. Democrats and Republicans constantly say that they have giant differences. Then what did the Republicans do? They do massive tax cuts for the rich. And then Obama, by the way, came in and actually made Bush's tax cuts permanent, which cost us even more than the original Bush tax cuts did. So there's a lot of theater about how they disagree. But at the end of the day, the rich always get tax cuts.
Save more money when Republicans are in office. Why do me as a business owner continue to save money?
So you know why? So I'm a small business owner. So we save a little bit of money. The giant corporations save a ton of money.
Isn't it better if everybody saves money?
No, it's not.
Why not? That makes no sense.
No, brother, it's easy to say, okay, then we shouldn't have any roads, bridges, cops, fire departments,
Nobody's
schools.
saying that. We just don't want our money going to
foreign. We shouldn't have any taxes.
We just don't want our money going to foreign countries.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
On drag events.
And by the way, that's another thing that proves my point. Republicans and Democrats always do whatever AIPAC tells them. So that is a foreign government.
That's a whole different argument.
No, it's not an argument. It's the same argument.
Okay, I mean, he says that's a whole different argument, and I would agree. So is he making an exception for Israel? Because if you want to talk about which foreign country leeches the most off of the American people, it's Israel.
Yeah. So look, I have actually sympathy for the folks that I debated, because they get thrown in, they don't know who they're going to debate, etc. And so they've got to make a case against this. But let's say they signed up for it, right? But so that guy in particular, for example, he's a right winger. But afterwards, he came up to me and said, "I'm kind of surprised at how much we agreed with you," right? And apparently a couple of the debaters then wrote in the comment section that they agreed with me. And including folks who don't necessarily like me, right? But guys, because it's obvious, our politicians are crooks. They take money from all these giant corporations and foreign governments and they serve them. So trying to defend them makes you look like mainstream media idiots, right? Everybody in cable news on New York Times, Washington Post, no. Our politicians are honest. The money from AIPAC influencing them, well, they would never. You sound like an anti-Semite. The money from big oil leading to $35 billion a year going to big oil. Why, that sounds outrageous. Are you saying the politicians are corrupt? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And by the way, look, I didn't hate all of them. In fact, I liked most of the people that I debated. I thought Zena did a great job. I thought Oliver and a bunch of the others did a good job. So I don't have a problem with them. It's just, we've got to break the mindset that mainstream media put into people's heads that these are our representatives. They're not. They're the representatives of the donor class.
All right, let's go to the third video where one Jubilee participant argues that, you know what, we just need to vote harder.
I have a lot of respect for you, but I worry about your progressive populism is dangerous. In fact, to me, you kind of sound like a political pickup artist. Like, just do this one trick and we can fix it all. And to me, it's no different than what MAGA is doing with their faux populism, with the deep state, with undocumented immigrants, someone to blame. You're just giving people corporate, corrupt Democrats or corporate media as an excuse. And I think you're just taking advantage of disaffected people and not showing them we got to get more involved. We got to invest more. We got to try harder and get good people in there.
So I wanted to start off with his framing there because he feels, Cenk is dangerous. Like Cenk is discouraging people from engaging in the political system by voting. You're discouraging people, making them disaffected. I couldn't disagree more. I think the way things have been going, our political system has deteriorated. It's completely eroded. I mean, you don't think that corporate corruption of our politicians on both sides of the political aisle matters at all? Really? You don't think that matters at all? You don't think that has any impact on how these individuals govern the country? I think that is the most naive thing I've heard anyone say in the context of this whole event.
Yeah, but Anna, remember, so we've been on the air for 23 years, 20 years on YouTube, original YouTubers, etc., right? So that guy's opinion is what I dealt with for 95% of my career with 95% of the people I dealt with. So if on cable news, when I was a host on MSNBC, Current TV, when I dealt with mainstream media reporters and so-called journalists, etc., they all say the same thing as him. There's no problem. Just vote harder for Democrats and everything will be fine. Then you go and you give the Democrats 60 senators under Obama. And they go, no, we needed 61. Oh, come on, guys.
The supermajority wasn't super enough. I know, there's always an excuse. So here's how Cenk responded to what he had to say.
So you're saying that don't even try progressive populism, just go along with the establishment Democrats because they know how to win. That's why they beat Donald Trump twice. Oh, right. They lost to Trump twice. They don't know anything. Their number one thing was, oh, we know how to win. They were liars. They didn't know how to win at all. They got clowned by a guy who's not that bright. Now, number two, oh, we have this giant agenda, $15 minimum wage, all the things that we've talked about throughout the day. Oh, golly gee, we just couldn't pass any of it. Oh, wow, okay. But hey, vote for an establishment Democrat. Don't get tricked by left-wing populism. Brother, do we actually ever try left-wing populism?
Yes.
Here's the three things we've tried. We've tried establishment Democrats, complete failures. We've tried establishment Republicans, complete failures. We tried fake populism under Donald Trump, complete failure.
I disagree.
So the only thing we haven't tried is left-wing populism. And you say, don't try it. Go back to the establishment Democrats. Go back to the donor class. Are you crazy?
I just don't understand the unwillingness to take stock of what just happened in the country as it pertains to the Democratic Party. Even before everyone finally realized, as a result of Biden's debate with Trump, that his brain had already melted, Biden's approval rating and the way he was performing in the polls up against Donald Trump made it abundantly clear, oh my God, like the Democratic Party is super unpopular, Biden is super unpopular. Voters are unhappy with how he handled his job in the White House. So why do you think that is? Why do you think he was so low in the polls? Was it because he did a great job looking out for struggling Americans in this country? Or could it be that people felt even more economic instability under Biden?
Yeah, but guys, there's something great about what happened on Jubilee. So, which is that, so if you look at the comments section, you go online anywhere, yeah, there's a couple of haters, that's always gonna be the case, right? But overall, people are like, this is obvious, what Cenk is saying is obvious. But for most of my life, mainstream media gaslit you in like an almost gaslighting torture chamber where they're like, it's not obvious, it's not obvious. Joe Manchin is great. By the way, that guy said we need Joe Manchin. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the fact that everybody's now saying, well, of course that's a ridiculous point. Of course the establishment politicians on both sides are full of crap is a beautiful day in America. Things are totally changing. So he said, you should tell people to get involved. Brother, you don't know me at all, okay? First of all, yes, get involved, get money out of politics. Fightcorruption.us, fightcorruption.us. And secondly, you said, is Cenk dangerous, right? Mm-hmm. But that goes to the point I was just making. Apparently I am. Apparently I'm the most dangerous man in America because all 3 cable news stations have me banned. Why is a guy who takes on 20 Democrats and Republicans, the internet seems to universally be saying, well, like it was almost not fair because it was so obviously correct, considered so dangerous by mainstream media, they won't allow me on air. Because I'm gonna say your beloved politicians are crooks and they can't stand that idea. Almost everyone in media agrees with him and not me. Isn't that amazing?
Not really, we're so used to it that I'm not surprised. But anyway, I'm kind of familiar with that guy. I think he does online content, which is kind of a shame. Like,
yeah,
anyway,
brother, go get a job at MSNBC.
For real, like you'd be welcome there for sure.
New York Times would be like, brilliant reporting. Can't wait to have you on.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to video 5.
You say the American Rescue Plan that took half the kids in poverty out of it, millions of kids who go to bed hungry, is crumbs, is doing nothing? That is a big deal. What about the millions of people who have health insurance now because of the Affordable Care Act subsidies? No, you can call whatever you want, but the reality is millions of people have health insurance today because of what the Democrats did when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2022 under the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. I can't stand that you call it crumbs. People don't want their whole lives given to them. They just want a little breathing room, like our big President Biden used to say.
So you say you're super happy with the 5 to 10% that the Democrats gave you.
It's not 5 to 10%.
There's 2 things here. Number one, I don't know what economic class you're in, but the average American is not happy with 5 to 10% change. They want giant change. They want the actual, by the way, the Democratic agenda is great. Our populist plank, the 6 most popular bills in the Democratic agenda, are super popular with independents and even with Republicans. But they never ever do the most popular bills because they're economic bills. And you say that's good enough. But then why not try the entire agenda? Why not go with an economic populist
Cenk,
like Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna that's gonna give you the whole agenda and actually try?
The Obama administration bailed out the banks and sold out the American people as their homes are being foreclosed due to those predatory mortgages that Wall Street was championing in order to bundle those toxic mortgages up into securities and then bet against them in the stock market. Obama rewarded those guys. Obama paved the fucking way. I'm sorry, but he did. He paved the way for Donald Trump. Wake up, wakey, wakey, wake up. There is resentment toward both parties in this country for a good reason. They have turned their backs on the American people, period. But thank you for allowing me to get healthcare even if I have a pre-existing condition. That was important, but look at the bigger picture here for once in your life.
So sometimes people ask me, yeah, but did you guys say that when Obama was president? Good news, we've got thousands of videos online where you can see, yeah, we did.
Get to know our archives, bitches.
Yeah, so I used to call Obama, I said if Obama had a wrestling nickname, it would be the establishment. So banks were his #1 donors in the 2008 campaign. He bailed them all out. On top of that, he gave them bonuses. He gave them bonuses for crashing the economy. Okay, he made Bush's tax cuts permanent, which cost us more money than the original tax cuts. And when we had an economic recovery in 2010, over 90% of the recovery went to the top 1%. But hey, just keep voting for corporate Democrats, and one day, after thousands of years, they'll do half their agenda.
Yeah,
it's a trick.
I guess there's a part of me that's a little bit envious of the people who like to stand the establishment Democrats in Congress, right? Because I guess they have hope, right? They believe in something in Congress. I don't believe in any of them, okay? I'm too awake and I'm too jaded by what the reality is. Like, at some point, you have to finally accept the fact that the corporate politicians on both sides of the political aisle are screwing you. And maybe they're not screwing you in particular, right? Maybe you managed to hold on to upper middle class status, I don't know. But for the majority of Americans, they've been struggling and their economic conditions have not improved at all since the Great Recession in 2008. So like, get to know people, get to know what they're going through, what they're experiencing, how they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they're on the edge every single month because of how little money they're making as inflation rises.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the claims that I was defending was that the Republicans only care about the rich. So you should check out the whole episode because guys, Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, all crooks. All right, we got more.
All right, I want to go to F7 first because you've got a gentleman, I guess, defending Ted Cruz. And then later we'll go to one other video. Let's take a look at this.
He says to Tucker Carlson recently,
yeah.
Oh, I mean, yes, I've taken millions from AIPAC, but I just happen to have that position. I had it earlier. I mean, I know that AIPAC would give me millions of dollars if I say, let's give billions back from the American taxpayer to AIPAC. Let's make sure we support all their wars. Let's fight all their wars for them. Oh, look at that. I happen to agree with my donors.
How do you know that Ted Cruz is being disingenuous about his views on Israel? You still haven't answered the question.
That's the easiest question in the world.
If it's so easy, then answer it for me.
Okay, so you're saying your hypothesis, my hypothesis is Ted Cruz and the politicians take millions of dollars from donors and do exactly as they're ordered. And how do I know that? Because their voting record matches with their donors perfectly. You're saying, but maybe there's a hypothetical 1 to 2% chance that Ted Cruz just was born out of the womb loving Israel's wars. And he's like, I can't wait to give money to Israel. Whereas, oh, look at that, what a coincidence. AIPAC is giving me millions of dollars for.
I actually in politics try to assume good intentions on both sides. Well, sure, you can.
Wow, okay, do not assume good intentions of politicians? Are you serious? Okay, by the way, Cenk, I mean, look, you're so focused on the money in politics for good reason. But I would have just answered with, I don't believe that Ted Cruz genuinely out of his own heart supports Israel, sincerely the way he does, because he couldn't even defend why. He couldn't even explain why in that Tucker Carlson interview. Yeah. Okay, he tried to cite the Bible for his support of Israel. And then when he was challenged on it by Tucker, he had no answer. He didn't even know which part of the Bible indicates that Cruz, as a Christian, must do everything in his power to support a foreign country, okay? A political government. I mean, he flailed in that interview because he can't even argue for why he supports Israel.
Real quick, I'll give you an example I've given a couple times on Young Turks. Ted Cruz said to Donald Trump, that I'm not going to endorse you back in 2016, and he wouldn't endorse him during the convention. Goes up to his main donors, the Mercer family. They'd given him $13 million in that primary. They slammed a door in his face in this fancy suite they have at the convention. Right afterwards, Ted Cruz endorses Donald Trump and starts phone banking for him. Because it's the money, Lebowski.
So pathetic.
After his donors said, you're not getting any more money, he changed his mind and his principles overnight. And he was like, oh yeah, never mind. I love Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, insult my wife all you want. You know what, you're probably right. She's probably ugly, okay?
Oh, that's so
Mercy,
right.
Please give me money again. This is the sick losers who are our politicians.
Yep, okay, finally, look, you addressed this. I think you addressed it well, but I want to talk about it too. Cenk gets confronted about being a business owner who's running a business.
Are you claiming then that all Democrats that take corporate money are against the people? Is that your claim?
Absolutely,
okay,
yes.
So then why did TYT take $20 million of corporate money?
Here we go again with personal attacks.
Okay,
no problem.
No
problem. I want to answer it. No problem. Okay, yeah. So $20 million is an investment.
Okay.
It is not here, take the money and then you do what we tell you to do. Everyone has, if you're building a business, you have to take investment to get to the next level.
Cenk,
Hold on, if you don't take the investment, you're going to be tiny. Okay. So when a corporation does an investment, that's a perfectly logical and normal thing to do. When a corporation buys a politician and those politicians then vote with them, that is a terrible thing to do.
Okay, this is very simple, okay? A business investment means I see a business that's making money and I would like to invest in something where I would get a return on investment. That is how a business investment works. A legalized bribe, which is now totally baked into our political system, is, hey, Donald Trump, I'm Miriam Adelson. I'd like to give you $100 million in return for you allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. which, by the way, Israel is currently carrying out under the Trump administration. Do you understand that? Do you understand how a bribe works versus an investment in a company or a business?
Yeah.
But she built a business, so she would know, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So look, the reason why I said personal attacks is because there were specific topics. We were debating, are Democrats and Republicans similar? Are the Republicans only serve the rich? Do Democrats mean what they say? Out of left field, they're like, okay, how about TYT as a company? I'm like, wait, I didn't know that this was about me, right? I thought we were discussing policy.
Yeah, and
right?
by the way, she does raise an interesting point though, Cenk, because clearly after you took corporate money, we here at TYT have been very friendly to corporations.
And to the politicians who serve them, right? I mean, have you watched 1 minute of TYT?
Listen, if you don't have a sound argument on the politics and you're gonna weigh in on personal attacks, you've already lost the argument.
Yeah.
You've got nothing.
So that's why.
So go ahead and defend your establishment Democrats with an actual substantive argument instead of a personal attack against a guy who started a business and needed an investment so people don't lose their jobs.
So look, that's why it's sidewinders, right? I'm like, okay, now you see why Democrats are not being honest with you. She's like, so you got detention in 7th grade.
So stupid.
Wait, what does that have to do with this argument? Anyways, so what's interesting though and ironic about that is she's presumably on the left. That's the same exact argument Ben Shapiro made in our Politicon debate.
I know, exactly, because there's really no difference.
Right, because when you get to corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans, they're like, no, politicians taking money to sell out our government and hand over our domestic and foreign policy to their donors, not a problem. A business taking investment money to grow larger, the very core of what they're supposed to do as a business, huge problem. And Ben Shapiro thinks that, but he made that point too. So, okay, that means no, they're giant hypocrites. They don't believe that at all. They're just trying to find a way to smear you and distract people. And why are they trying to distract from that point? Not to attack the Young Turks, but so that they can get you to think, oh, the politicians taking the money is no big deal. It's just like Nike taking money for an investment. No, when they give Nike money, it's so that they can get
a return on investment.
Right, they can get a return on investment.
They want their money to make more money, okay?
Yeah,
they see a business that's working, they're like, ooh, a money-making opportunity. Keep doing what you're doing, here's an investment, hopefully I get a return on investment.
But when they give money to a politician, what they want in return is our government. That's why it's wrong. And as I explained in the clip, it's not wrong to have a corporation, it's just wrong to have a corporation that's allowed to buy politicians.
Exactly.
Okay, so look, check out the whole thing, and I thought it was a super interesting conversation. It was more aggressive than I expected, but hey, I was born for this, so I liked it overall. And so, if it's part of a awakening, and you see it in the comments section in the video, right? Like finally, we Americans are beginning to understand, no matter what your ideology is and no matter where you are on the political spectrum or the ideological spectrum, none of that matters if our politicians take corporate donor money and foreign government donor money, because then they're not having real debates and they're not gonna represent you. They're just gonna represent their donors. And that's what the current state is. Guys, that's why we need not a little bit of change, like, oh, we decided to negotiate drug prices on 1 to 10 drugs. No. We need to get the money out so that they actually represent us on all issues. If you don't get the money out, they're gonna represent us on no issues. Money in politics isn't the most important issue. It's really, until we solve that, it's the only issue. Because you can't win on any of the other issues if our representatives aren't our representatives. They're the donors' representatives. So that's why I keep talking about fightcorruption.us, and that's Wolfpack to get money out. And we want it to be as nonpartisan as possible. And help Rebellion PAC. There's a literal rebellion going on within the Democratic Party where candidates are saying, I'm not taking any corporate PAC money anymore, and I'm actually gonna do those bills, the ones that are super popular. So go support rebellionpac.com, join the rebellion. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.